Are you lacking discipline in your life right now? And it's really impacting on your confidence and self-esteem. Well, I've certainly been there when there's a lack of discipline to do something, and therefore it impacts on how I feel about myself because I'm not doing what I said I want to do. Well, today I'm going to share a perspective on this and share you 5 ways in which you can change this as well. And if you stay until the end, I have an extra point for you then as well. Now, I'm someone who's actually got sometimes quite a short attention span, unless I really like something like making podcasts, for example. I've made a load today. I've batched them together and I'm going to schedule them out for the week. That's how I do them. Sometimes I do them spontaneously, but most of the time that's how I do it. And I enjoy it. And making videos, I enjoy doing that. Making content, I enjoy doing that. When I've got something like I was doing my accounts yesterday, and that took me a while to do, and I really had to break it down. I'm someone who has had to find systems and things in place to be a little bit more disciplined. And discipline is not always a negative thing. Discipline is being able to allow you to move forward towards where you want to go. Sometimes doing dull, mundane, or hard things, right? In workplaces, though, particularly in my career, I've had challenges when I've just been overwhelmed, and therefore I put things off, and therefore it causes stress on deadlines, and therefore a lot of stress on my mental well-being because of the lack of discipline. But actually, what I've discovered is that it's about having the right systems and processes in place. And I think as human beings, we all have systems and processes, I believe. Sometimes, though, those systems and processes are not necessarily serving us. For example, you may have a system or process of you want to get healthy, you want to lose some weight, you want to have good energy. Yet your system and process for that is sitting on the sofa most evenings and eating junk food and watching Netflix. That may not be you, but that's an example. You're thinking, well, that's not a system. It is a system or process. It just may not be the right one, right? That's a good system and process if perhaps, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, by the way. That's a good system and process if you want to perhaps put on a little bit more weight, right? Just being honest, right? Or perhaps you don't want to be as productive. I'm not saying you should never do that, by the way. Like sometimes we need that, right? And it's up to you what's the right system and process in place. Is that a good system and process for going and to the, getting fitter, losing weight, having more energy? Probably not, right? So there's so much information and things grabbing our attention these days. It's hard to be disciplined, right? And doing the things we want to do. There's so many distractions like left, right, and center. Now ask yourself this: how is it helping you by not having the right systems and processes in place, and therefore not being as disciplined as you want? So therefore it's impacting on your confidence and self-esteem. Well, like I said, it's caused me challenges like overwhelm, stress, because I just didn't have those systems and processes in place. And I'll give an example. When I've worked remotely, I found it really hard to focus on boring and dull things in like day-to-day work. And therefore, when I go into like maybe a cafe or an office environment, or I even dress smart, it's impacted me positively, and I'm able to focus a little bit more, right? So it's about understanding what you want, and therefore understanding what are the systems and processes, or habits is another term you could use, in order to get that. So here are a few points that I found super effective. Number one, this is probably one of the worst. It's the devil, they say. Your mobile phone. All right. Probably listening to me right now on a mobile phone. Great. Fantastic. I'm glad you're listening, of course. I don't, say to myself, I'm never going to never use my mobile phone. That's just unrealistic, right? Some people go on retreats and don't do it for a week or something like that. But generally, you're probably going to use your phone in this day and age. Yet you can have times where you block off to use your phone and you don't, right? Or maybe you just even have like one of those apps that blocks social media, or certain like apps that you might need to use your phone for other things that are productive. but you can do that. So the first thing I found is having your phone, like blocking certain apps, putting it in another room, or a drawer or something like that. So that's the first thing to help with my discipline. The second one is breathing exercises. Why does that help? Well, when you can be a bit more mindful, that allows you to have a bit more energy and a bit more focus because of some of the breathing exercises you're doing. If you're able to be mindful and you're able to do breath, it calms your nervous system down. And it allows you to be a bit more present and therefore focus more on limited things than too many things, because your brain's just going left, right, and center. So that's the second thing. The third one, have breaks too. Don't just be like, I'm going to do this, this, and this, because when we make it too harsh on ourselves and too overloaded, then we just, what's the word I'm looking for? Rebel against ourselves. When we rebel, and then we start being really undisciplined. So make it realistic, scheduling your breaks, scheduling your exercise, scheduling your social life as well. I talked about this in another podcast episode recently, but if you schedule in just work, right? Unless it's something you like absolutely love and it's like easy to do, like on cycle, when you can do it like spontaneously and it's second nature to you. Unless it's like that, if it's something hard and dull and you're like squeezing too many things in, then you're going to rebel and it's going to exhaust you, and therefore you're not going to feel as much confidence in yourself because you're not doing what you say you're going to do. So scheduling those breaks, be realistic as well. The next one is, although I said about the phone away, you could also, this is something I learned from my mentor, have an alarm or get Siri to remind you to refocus. So you can have pop-ups, like you could be distracted and then have your phone come up and say, refocus on what you're doing. And then you go, oh yeah, I was doing that. My mentor also says this, I should have shared earlier, Joseph McClendon. He says, we don't necessarily have a problem with focus. We have a problem with refocus. And refocus allows us to be more disciplined. Okay, and then the fifth one, how can you be more disciplined? Get in the right environment. We adapt to our environments, whether it's like a in-person thing or a virtual thing. If you're hanging out with some hardworking entrepreneurs all the time, what's going to happen to you? You're going to be a hardworking entrepreneur. If you're hanging out with your friends who, like, no disrespect to them, like absolutely people entitled to do what they want, like they just like live for the weekends, they just do the bare minimum in their job. And this is, again, no judgment, but you will adapt to that as well. Like as entrepreneurs, like the most successful entrepreneurs I know, they work weekends as well. I'm not saying work all the time, you need break and stuff like that, but who you hang out with and being in those environments, that's why I invest into like different groups and programs and things like that, so I can be around the right people. So that's the fifth way. If you're with people who don't discipline themselves and they do the bare minimum, they're lazy, you will adapt to that. If you've got people who are very good and disciplined and maybe they don't overdo it, but they work hard, then you'll adapt to that as well. So that's my fifth point. I've also got a special bonus point for you that I'm going to go on to in a moment as well. Okay, so here is my bonus point for how to increase your discipline. And when, like I say, when you've got more discipline, you've got more belief in yourself and more confidence because you're progressing more. And it's this: model somebody else. Okay, we just talked about the environment, but one great way is to look at someone who's really, you know, where you want to be, maybe a few steps further or maybe even a lot further, and then start looking at their behaviors. And the three things you want to look at is their physiology, the way they move, their beliefs, what do they believe, and the syntax, the way they do things. And the syntax is especially important, the way they're disciplined. What do they do? Maybe they work early in the morning. You know, tailor it a little bit to what works for you, but modeling someone else who's very disciplined in an area is really going to allow you to go further faster and therefore boost your confidence. So that's my bonus point for you as well. So I appreciate you for being here. You're improving other people's lives for being the best you. And remember, you're in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.